Hello, how is everybody today? Everybody doing good? I'm trying to get situated here. We talked yesterday about Adam, who was the very first dad, and I did a little bit of research and found out that, guess what? Women and men have the same amount of ribs. So there is a thing where you can have like an extra rib, and it's really kind of ironic how that works. So if you're interested in finding that out, I did a little Google search and found out. I'm sure you could probably talk to your doctor about that and see what they have to say. But the funny thing is, it said there was a grave misconception because of the story of Adam and Eve, that women had one more rib than men, and I fell victim to that. So thank you for joining in tonight. And as usual, I am Jill Walters with the Bold Movement. I am on the board of directors. And we want to thank you for joining in, giving us your feedback and your comments. It's very important to us that we're reaching you on what your needs are. So we wanted to talk tonight about Noah. So I found out that Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, right? And they had a serpent that came and tempted them with this one particular tree that they weren't allowed to eat from. And they went, hey, Paula Parrish! And they went ahead and ate from that tree, right? Do you remember what happened when they decided to eat from that tree? Do you remember what God said to them? And do you remember what was guarding the Garden of Eden as they said, okay, well, we messed up. So what did God say to them? What was guarding them? What happened to them? And what was guarding the Garden of Eden? Do you remember? I'll give you a second because it's a little bit of a lag from the time I ask and from the time you respond. And if you want to look, I just looked at the thing. It's Genesis chapter 2. An angel. That's exactly right. Was that Robbie by chance? And do you remember what the angel had that was guarding the Garden of Eden? Or of Eden. But there was a garden inside there. Do you remember what he had? It wasn't a gun or I can't. Good job, Robbie. It was a sword of what? Do you remember? I'll show you a picture. That's right. Sword of fire. Yay, Robbie, you got a first one! Yay, you paid attention last night. I'm very proud of you. So we talked about Adam being the first dad and that he had two sons, and they were Cain and Abel. And then we talked about how we were going to proceed on with the second dad, which would be Noah. Now, I did a little bit of research on this, and I want to share with you what I found out. I found out that Noah was his father was Lamech, and guess what? Now, this is really kind of cool. He was the ninth. It says, Noah appears in Genesis 5:29 as the son of Lamech and ninth in descendant from Adam. So he was 9 generations away, or 9 descendants from Adam. So how cool is that? I don't know if a whole lot of people thought about that, but I thought that was very unique, fun fact. And I want to ask you, now get this. This is something you may not know, but when I ask you a question, do you know how old he was when he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth? You may not. I'm going to tell you. And I hope you're sitting down. He was 500 years old. 500 years old when he became a dad. 500 years old. I think it would be awful to be having babies at like 50 or 60, let alone 500. Can you believe that? I thought that was so kind of cool that I just wanted to share. Yeah, exactly. What? I just wanted to share that with you. I just could not believe it. So the story of Adam in the Garden of Eden is found in Genesis, and I wanted to tell you the exact chapter. So Adam and Eve are in chapters 2 and 3, and then Cain and Abel come around in chapter 4. So Noah, he becomes prevalent in chapters 6 through 9, but this says that the thing I just told you about says that he appears in Genesis 5:29 as the son of Lamech. So let me just really quickly go over the Cain and Abel and wrap that up. Abel was a shepherd, and he would follow his flock, and the family would often eat the meat that he would bring home. And Eve would make clothes and blankets from the soft lamb's wool. And Cain grew up to be a farmer like Adam. So he worked in the fields from daybreak to nightfall. So when he came home at night, he was tired, and his hands were soiled and rough, and sometimes wrapped in a sheepskin. He would lie awake in the moonlight, wondering why his father never complained about the hard work they did. So, much harder work, Cain thought, than the work of a shepherd. So then there comes a thing called like a sibling rivalry, and I think we know what happens, but when it came time for the two brothers to make their offerings to God, Abel laid on the altar a fat young lamb, which was the best of his flock, and the flames leaped high, the fat crackled, and Abel knew that his gift was pleasing to God. Then Cain brought to the altar the fruits of his harvest, grain and green herbs from the fields. Even as he knelt there, impatiently waiting for God to accept his gift, a steamy smoke choked off the flames. So, seeing that Cain had taken Abel's offering, but not his own, Cain hardened his heart against his brother. So there they go. They begin to, God said to Cain, "Why are you so angry? And why do you look so sad? Know now that if you do well, your gift will be accepted. But if you do not do well, then evil lies waiting at the door. For though evil wishes to rule over you, you may yet be its master." So what he's saying is, you may want to be angry, but you can have a mindset to turn against that and to follow me. God's words did not soften Cain's anger, and every time he thought about Abel's gift to God, hatred filled his heart like a raging fire. And one day, hiding his true feelings, Cain lured Abel to a lonely field. And there rose up against his brother, and he actually killed his brother. And God cried out to Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" I don't know, Cain answered. Does that sound familiar? Kind of like something that Adam and Eve might have done? Am I my brother's keeper? And God knew that Cain had killed Abel and said to him, "What have you done? I can hear your brother's voice calling to me from the ground." Then God cursed Cain, saying, "Now you are more foul than the ground you stain with your brother's blood. No more shall you be a farmer, for the soil shall yield nothing to you. You shall become a homeless wanderer over the face of the earth." So Cain was punished for his bad doings. So it is starting to rain. So let me go very, very quickly into Noah. So the Lord, actually, Cain pleaded with God, and the Lord heard Cain's plea, saying, "I will put a mark upon your forehead to let everyone know that whoever kills you receives a punishment 7 times worse than your punishment for killing Abel. This mark will protect you, but it will also remind you, wherever you go, of the great crime you committed." And so Cain left the land of his birth and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden, and there he lived and married and had a son named Enoch, and bore God's mark on his forehead at the end of his days. So, hey, Emmy. So now we're going to look at Noah's Ark, and Noah was, if you think about it, we talked about Adam being the first dad, but really it just says here that he had a son. So really, is Cain the second dad? Right? So Cain left the land of his birth, and he settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden, and there he lived and married and had a son named Enoch. So now we're going to move to Noah. So God looked at the world he'd made, and he was very unhappy. And I think you know the story about Noah and the ark. And what happened was, it says here, he saw that the people were acting in evil ways and had become mean and selfish. And their meanness had spread through the world like a sickness, poisoning all things on the earth. Earthquakes and volcanoes shook the land, for the earth itself was infected by evil. God was sorry that he had made the world, and thought, "I shall destroy man, whom I created, and all the animals and all the birds." But there was one man who found favor in the eyes of the Lord. His name was Noah, and he was the son of Lamech. Noah was the father of 3 sons, and if you remember, we talked about how old he was when he had his 3 sons. He was 500 years old. So he had Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and he was an honest man who followed God's way. So God said to Noah, I have decided to make a great flood that will destroy everything on the earth. Only you and your family will be saved. Noah listened carefully to what God told him to do. Build an ark of wood, 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. And inside, make rooms and take great care to seal all the cracks with pitch so the water will not come through. The ark must have 3 decks with a window near the top and a door on the side. And when the floodwaters cover the earth, this ark will be a safe place for you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring into the ark 2 of each living creature, 1 male and 1 female, 2 of each bird, 2 of each beast, 2 of each creeping thing, to keep its kind alive. Now get this. Everybody talks about the 2 animals that Noah brought, 2 of each kind. But it doesn't, a lot of times we forget about, they had to bring food for themselves and their family and for the animals. So they had clean and unclean animals that they had to bring to feed themselves, their family, and the animals. So Noah was a very old man, but he and his sons set to work as God had commanded. Now here's something I want you to think about. If he was 500 years old when he had his sons, and his sons are helping him build the ark, how old is this guy? He's out there working, building an ark at 500 plus years old, and his sons are helping them, and his sons are married. So I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this guy's like a super duper trooper, right? I mean, he's a tough old bird. So when Noah's neighbors saw what he was doing, they laughed at him. And here's a picture of him building the ark. And I think we've talked about before about the blueprints for the ark and the length and the height and all that good stuff. And we kind of know the story, I think, of what happened. And the land was full of sin. God commanded Noah. He found one guy and it says that the land was sinful. But there was one man, it says, one man who found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So when you talk about the great storm that was coming, and you got to think, these people had never seen rain before. So that would be like me saying, there's going to be a volcano at your house. Okay, I don't live in Hawaii. What on earth are you talking about? There's going to be a volcano. And pretend you'd never even seen a volcano before. And I'm trying to describe it. It's going to be like, fire. And you're like, what? That's kind of the same thing. Or what if I said, there's going to be a 20-foot surf come in your front yard? It'd be hard for you to believe that, wouldn't it? So this is the kind of way these people were thinking, like, why is Noah saying this? And they were kind of making fun of him, right? So they were, he was like, it's going to rain. And they're pointing at the sky saying, it's not going, what is rain? What are you talking about? It's cloudless. So when Noah warned them that a great flood would cover the earth, they joked, and I'm sorry, I don't know 100% sure that they had never seen rain before. I will check into that. But the point of the matter is, they're acting like he's crazy. So they joked that they could use some water because their wells were running dry. So they had seen water if they had wells, right? So there's that. Even when Noah told them that God was planning to destroy the world because of the evil of men, his neighbors still laughed at him. So here they are watching him build, thinking he's wacko jacko. Like, what is he even talking about? So after many months of hard work, the ark was finished. Then God said to Noah, go into the ark and bring your family with you. Now, we talked earlier about how many sons Noah had. Do you remember? It takes just a second for you to answer, for it to roll through. I'm looking to see. I don't see any answers yet. Okay, so he had 3 sons. That's right! Paula got it. I bet that's Robbie. Good job! He had 3. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So here are his boys. So he's a dad, right? So we talked about Adam was the first dad. But then we found out just a second ago, well, just a few minutes ago, we talked about Cain. He was a dad. He had a son. That's right, Anita. Good job. So Adam was a dad. Cain was a dad. And I don't know about Abel. I have to check into that story and find out. But Noah's a dad. So the ark was being built by the help of his sons. So it makes me kind of think he must have been a pretty good dad if his sons were helping him out. And I don't know if that's just the way it was. You were raised and you had to do what your dad said. But maybe not necessarily, because remember, they're talking about Cain and Abel. I don't think Adam said, listen, it's okay to kill your brother. I don't think that's the kind of dad Adam was. So there's good and evil, and we have a choice to do the right thing or the wrong thing. You have to think through the choice, but you also have to think through the consequences. But you need to pray, God, what would you like for me to do? How can I be in your will? Show me, lead me, guide me. So when you think about who is in charge of what we do, it's us, but we can be led by God and the Holy Spirit. So let me jump back into the story. I'm sorry, got off track there. So it was time to go into the ark and to bring his family with him, and bring into the ark 2 of each animal, 2 and each bird and each reptile, and enough to keep them alive. For in 7 days the rains will begin, and they will sweep off the earth all the creatures I made. Here we go. Noah did exactly as God commanded. And it came to pass that after 7 days, the skies darkened, and the waters of the great flood covered the earth. Now here's a picture of all the animals that are being, taken onto the ark. Could you imagine a giraffe and a mouse side by side? But they had 3 levels, remember? So for 40 days and 40 nights, the rains fell. Water burst from the springs of the deep and flooded through the windows of heaven. For 150 days, the flood waters rose. Let me say that again. For 150 days, the flood waters rose. So we have to think about when they say, okay, we want you to stay indoors with COVID. So let's just say that it was March 1st. Let's just say it was March 1st. It started, everybody has to be in. And it's June 1st now. So we have almost 90 plus days that we're in. These people had like double that. We're talking almost 6 months that the floodwaters rose. That they were there in this ark together, side by side, arm in arm, talking, can't get away from each other, right there all the time. Do you think they might have been a little stressed, or do you think it was a pleasant experience? What do you think? If you couldn't leave your house at all to go anywhere for like 6 months, would you be able to do that? So I would say this family prayed a lot. So when you think about 150 days, the waters rose, bearing the ark higher and higher. That doesn't mean they were allowed to get out of the ark. That's just how many days the ark rose in the floodwaters. Water covered the hills and crested over the highest mountains. There was water everywhere. Not a bird, not a beast, not a man or a woman could be seen. God had wiped out all the living beings he had made. Only Noah and his family and the animals in the ark survived. Stressed. If you had to be in your house for 6 months, you couldn't leave, it would be a little stressful, wouldn't it? It'd take a lot of prayer to get through that sometimes. Then God remembered Noah and sent a great wind over the waters. The waters began to drop, and the rain stopped. For 150 days, the waters receded. Okay, so for 150 days, the floodwaters rose. For 150 days, the waters receded. So we're pushing almost a year at this point. That's like 300 days plus. The ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Finally, the tops of the mountains appeared. Noah waited 40 more days before opening the window of the ark, and then he sent a raven from the ark. The raven flew around and around and could not find a place to land. Then Noah sent a dove out, but the dove could not find a place to perch either, and it returned to the ark. For 7 more days, Noah waited, and then he sent the dove out again. That evening, the dove flew back to the ark with an olive branch in its beak, and so Noah knew that the waters were drying out. Noah waited another 7 days, so now we're looking at 3 weeks, and sent the dove out. This time, the dove did not return. Then Noah opened the ark and saw the land had dried. And God said to Noah, "Leave the ark with your wife and your sons and their wives, and all the animals and birds and reptiles. Build your homes again and be fruitful and multiply." Then Noah built an altar and made a great sacrifice to the Lord. And when God smelled the sweet smoke, he thought, "Never again shall I curse the earth in this way. Never again shall I destroy all the people and animals on it. Seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night. All these will continue for as long as the earth remains." And God blessed Noah and his family, saying, "Behold, I will make a promise to you and to all who come after you, that I shall never destroy all life with a flood. Do you know what that promise was? Do you remember in the story? And as a sign of the promise, I shall set a... Do you remember what it is? Kind of looks like an arch. He set a rainbow in the clouds. So whenever a rain cloud passes and a rainbow appears, it will be a sign to me and to you and to all who come after you that I remember my promise and shall not send another flood. So the story of Noah and the ark is a very common story, I think, that we talk about often. But I want to kind of drive home the fact that Noah had to be a good leader as a dad. He had to get his sons. You can't just say, hey, we're going to build an ark. Everybody just do whatever you want. He kind of had to set an example. Okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. You do this, you do this, you do this. And I'm not sure it's how it went. Maybe one of his sons was taking the lead. But let's just think about what it would be like having these blueprints. And maybe they needed like nails and wood and all this stuff. Somebody had to have a plan. Somebody had to be in charge. So, that's right, Paula. Good job. So when you think about what kind of a dad was Noah, he must have been a pretty good dad if he found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And his sons worked with him, and their wives came. And it says to be fruitful and multiply. So we know at this point there's going to be more children born. So that means they're all going to be dads. So now Noah's going to be a grandpa at some point, right? So think about what your dad has taught you. Is it something that you would like to pass on to your child, to your son or your daughter? And think about what your mom has taught you. Even though Father's Day is coming up this weekend, think about what your mom and your dad do together. What has your mom taught you? What does your dad do? And what do they do together? And if you think, I'd like to read a Bible story with my mom and dad, try it. See if you could prepare a Bible story for them. Or maybe you could do like Carter did and do your little guitar solo. You never know. But your parents are usually pretty excited to see something you've prepared for them. So just try to make the best out of what you have. And if you get called to build an ark, I guess I'll come help you. I'll try my hardest. How's that? Thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for being a part of the Bold Movement. Every evening at 7:30, we're here to share with you just a little bit of God's Word. And I appreciate you sharing just a little bit of your evening with me. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Pinterest. And our email address is info@theboldmovement.com. And we have an app that is available in the App Store. I downloaded the app, and it actually will tell you how to read your Bible through. So it's got a little Bible reading program for you. It's really full of a lot of good stuff that's just very advantageous to help you develop your relationship with Christ. Go out, oh I got it, and be bold. Share this story with somebody and see if they knew Noah was 500 years old when he started having kids. You guys have a great evening. I will talk to you tomorrow night. Take care and be bold. See ya.